So I've been watching these videos by Troy Eckard. He has a YouTube channel, Eckard Enterprises Oil and Gas. You can see it here. And I found what he talks about oil and gas to be very interesting, just generally interesting. And it seems like, he has a substantial company, but I don't think anybody in the company, because he has all these employees, everybody's afraid to go up to him and say, Troy, when you talk about geopolitics, like Iran and stuff, you sound like a complete idiot. Sorry. So apologies, Troy, if you're watching this, but I think somebody should talk about this. And Troy isn't the only one out there in the oil and gas business that I believe have ironically become like soft-bellied New England Yankees, very philosophical and talking about the stuff that has nothing to do with what's really going on. So I'm going to go through that in this video about, by the way, I see these geopolitical errors all the time. Now, you might think I'm wrong, but if you want to hear out an opposing view to what he thinks is going on. Now, by the way, in general, I agree with him on the basic structure. I believe war is going to continue for years. I believe it is a huge economic opportunity for people into the oil and gas business. So the ironic thing is, I think it's a very strong case for somebody maybe to look at his services. But if somebody's watching and has any sort of knowledge of geopolitical history, they're not going to have confidence in him because he's saying stuff like that's straight out of the news. And it could be MSNBC, it could be Fox. Because when it comes to geopolitics, by the way, there's no difference in these news, whether they're conservative, Democrat, liberal, whatever. It's basically all the same. They're framed a little bit differently, but what goes on in the government is pretty much the same. So anyway, I'm just going to go through some stuff as if I was talking to him. And again, apologies. And hopefully you find this interesting. So let's go to the first thing that sort of that got my interest when I watched his video back on June 15th. I think I was watching him before that. And this is just Claude summarizing what he said. He questions whether Trump's proposed peace agreement is genuine or simply a way to stop the hornet's nest from stinging, his quote. A pause that lets both sides step back while markets overreact with optimism. He doubts the Iranians will honor any commitment. Can we count on the Iranians and those that are out working with them to really live up to their word? I doubt it. Okay, Troy. The only thing Trump can negotiate himself out of is personal bankruptcy. That's my opinion. I'm not negative or positive on him at all. I think that's pretty much a fact. So, and the other thing is that I'm from New York, so I grew up with Trump in a sense, and he's never had any interest in geopolitics. I believe to this day, if you showed him a map, he could not place Iran on that map. He couldn't place Iran, he couldn't place Israel, couldn't place Iraq, and he has no, I don't believe, has any idea where these countries are, or anything about the history, or anything like that. So when you say he doubts the Iranians will honor any commitment, you're saying that from the perspective of a convicted felon, like the convicted felon is saying they won't honor their commitment. I mean, growing up in New York, I knew people that were stiffed by him. He doesn't honor his commitments. He doesn't pay any landscaper or a contractor that he can basically get away with it. He did not pay. This is common knowledge in New York, okay? So, okay, but the Iranians are either going to be the problem here. I mean, all right. So, but I'm getting away from it because I don't want to make this about politics or about Trump because it really has nothing to do with it. But I want to give some perspective because what Troy does and what many people do is they just repeat what they read in the press. And again, the press, it's the same whether it's Democrat, conservative, liberal, whatever. In geopolitics, they basically, in the United States, will follow the same sort of party line. They follow what the State Department tells them. So to understand what's really going on, you have to look at the facts yourself, and you have to make your own calculations. So here's something to drive a point home. If Iran said to Cuba, listen, we want to bring some of our missiles to Cuba, Cuba Crisis 2.0, and they brought them to the tip of Cuba, they could hit Troy's office in Allen, Texas, precisely. Like, not 3 buildings over, like the building. They could take out his whole building, his whole company. Think of the technology that is required to do that. So to think of Iran, or any of these, especially Iran, as this country of a bunch of religious fanatics, right, who don't honor their commitments, as just running around with a bunch of AK-47s, is naive at best. These missiles are cutting edge, state of the art. I don't even think the U.S. has anything that can do it. Could the U.S. do it? Sure. But they don't have anything right now that does that. So you need to understand, when you talk about Iran, you're not talking about like 7 goofballs in a room. You're talking about a country that graduates 250,000 engineers a year, as many as the U.S., and we're 3 times the size. Because they've been under sanctions since 1979, they've had to build everything themselves. Engineering is very important in Iran, because if you can't build it yourself, you can't go in the Western market and buy anything. You have to make it yourself. So that's what they do. And they're a very technologically advanced country. Don't confuse the leadership. It's just like, if I was in Iran, I would say, hey, listen, don't confuse Trump. Like, don't think the United States is going to be a pushover because Trump and everybody in Congress and Senate are a bunch of idiots. Don't do that, because the talent behind the United States, the industrial capacity, the smartness, the innovativeness is very, don't mess with it. And by the way, Iran has tried not to mess with it for decades. They know. So, but it's the same thing. Like, they shouldn't be naive about what the United States could do if it put its, got the right people involved to do it. And nor should anybody underestimate Iran and think that they're just going to be some pushover. So, again, when you're sitting in your office and you're saying, oh, like, Iran doesn't honor their agreements and they're just a bunch of, like, terrorists and whatever, like, ask yourself, could you hit Cuba with a missile? Could you? Like, could America hit a building pinpoint in Cuba with a missile? So, again, just doing this to, and then the other thing I want to point out is Israel never backs down, ever, right? So back in when they got into the war and Iran was hitting Israel with missiles every day, Israel quit in 12 days. That's what we call 12-day war. In 12 days, Israel did a ceasefire. They did a ceasefire because if Iran kept continuing, there wouldn't be anything left of Tel Aviv right now. And you can either believe that or not, but you have to come to your own conclusion. But that's the conclusion I'm coming to. Israel never backs down. They get in a war with Iran. Iran's hitting them with missiles every day. Israel says, please, ceasefire. Okay. You know what? That's the facts. That's all I need to know. I don't even need to know any of the technology behind the missiles or this or that. Same thing. U.S. is bombing Iran for 40 days, kills 160 of their children, students who are girls, right? And after it, Iran is still hitting bases, U.S. bases in the region. So what did the U.S. do? I don't need to know anything. All I need to know is that after 40 days, the U.S. quit because they kept getting attacked. We don't know what happened to their ships out at sea, but we know what happened to their bases. We know about the $1 billion worth of radars that they kept losing, the planes that they were losing. These are facts. These are well known. But you have to, do the connection in your head. So I just really want to push back. I would recommend to anybody, like if you want to talk about Iran, do your homework, do your research. If you're a guy in a big business and everybody wants to say yes to you and you're so smart, sir, that's fine. But to people like me, okay, I'm nobody, but the people that follow this is like, really? Okay. So there, he goes into this other video where he says he's skeptical. Troy, and again, many people like him, believe Iran's Revolutionary Guard will not honor, sign, or follow through on any memorandum of understanding and never has. Well, have you heard of the JCPOA? Well, they followed it. And you know who ripped it up? Trump ripped it up. Why? He didn't give a reason. I think the reason is he just doesn't like Obama. Obama did it, so he signed it up. He didn't care whether it's a good plan or a bad plan. He signed it up. So the only people that have been ripping up memorandums and not obeying their ceasefire has been Israel and the United States. But if you really want to believe that that it's them, right? Okay, I mean, go ahead, but it's just not what I see looking at the facts that I can see them. Because again, the media is always trying to paint you a story, a cock and bull story, right? That paints the facts in one way, where I think if you look at them in a common sense way, you see another. And that's the thing that surprised me. Texans are supposed to be common sense. I'm going to get into that in a second. Then Troy said, Troy believes boots on the ground will ultimately be required within 3 to 10 years to dismantle the Revolutionary Guard and potentially restore the country to its people. Again, you need to find some people. You need to hire somebody that says, listen, read my script. And if I say anything that's going to be a howler to some people, let me know. Because this is a howler, total howler. So you're telling me, let's just say there's some Texans out there, right? And Texans have lived there for generations, right? But then they're poor now. And they say, listen, we need to dismantle the Texan government, U.S. government, whatever, and restore all the oil to the people, us, right? What would you say, Troy? What would any Texan say? Restore the oil to the people. They say, get out of here, you socialist, communist, right? What do you mean restore to the people? Get the heck out of here. So you're saying like, okay, we're going to go do it in another country? But even if we did that, like, okay, you don't want to give your Texas oil to the people, but you want Iran to give it to the people? What do we get out of it? Like, this is the kind of stuff when people say this, like, I'm like, what are you talking about, right? Like, what's it to us? What, like, do we do this in the Gulf Coast states? Do we do this in Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia? These are all run by monarchies, families. Why? Because the West wants the smallest number of people to control the greatest amount of oil and not share that wealth with others. Because when you give the wealth to others, it's less, we have to pay more. It's less for us. So we don't mind if you get tremendously rich. You rent the Waldorf Astoria for a party or whatever, that's fine. As long as you get the oil, you sell it to us on our terms, and you don't just go out there restoring your country to the people, because we don't want that. If you restore a country to the people, well then, we can't get the price we want, which is what happened in Iran, but I'm not going to go into the history. You have to go read that history, okay? So just to say something like that is just so naive. The other thing is that you think boots on the ground. Do you know how many boots on the ground it would take to dismantle the IRGC in Iran? Analysts, I've been reading these analyst reports since 1979. Well, not then, I was too young probably, but for a long time. And they all say the same thing. Again, I'm not going to go into the research, but the bottom line is the country of 90 million people, 250,000 engineers a year. They've prepared their whole life for this war, okay? They already went through 8 years of the war being gassed and everything with Iraq because we funded Iraq to attack them. So you're talking about people. And again, that Iraq-Iran war was in living memory of many leaders of Iran. You're talking about these leaders of Iran who fought the U.S. through Iraq in a sense, got gassed, lost their relatives, their whatever. You're talking about this battle-hardened people that are always after. And so they're obviously been preparing, right, for this, and they sell oil to China, so they get anything they need from China to build their weapons, to build their tunnels. You're telling me a bunch of fat Americans are going to go over there and dismantle these people? Okay, you send your kids over. So I want to look at landman, because landman, I think, is your stereotypical view of a Texas oil man. And I think it gets many things right, even though it's made for third graders in a sense. And this is what's funny, because like Troy is not coming off like Tommy in Landman. Well, there's no character like Troy in Landman. I'll explain why. So when Landman opens, right, what happens? There's a road, a private road that's owned by this mid-tier oil company, MTEX, that Tommy, Billy Bob Thornton, is the landman for, right? Now, even though I don't know much about the oil business, even I know like a lot of this stuff is just made up. Like I don't think they're landmen anymore. The lands has already been decided who's anyway. So anyway, Tommy's the basically the chief operations officer, right, for the company. Anyway, this plane crashes, and then a truck that's owned by the oil company crashes into their plane. It blows up, and there's $30 million of cocaine on it, right, or whatever, drugs, and it goes up. Now, what's the first thing Tommy does? Does he call like the government say, hey, listen, all this cartel money, drugs landed on our road. You guys should come out here. We should look into it. We don't want drugs coming into our country and ruining our kid's life. That's what Tommy did, right? Tommy's like, yeah, we got to stop the drugs. I'm going to call up the government, and yeah, we're going to get to the bottom of this. Oh, no, he didn't do that. Because Tommy is in the business. His job is to make as much money for his boss, who owns the company, as possible. His job is not to get into politics or drugs or anything like that. That's his job, okay? That's what he looks at. And so, the cartel, they kidnap him, they torture him. And during this torture, does Tommy ever say, hey, listen, it was an accident. It's on your fault. It's my road. Like, so we're not going to pay you. Or maybe we can do a deal, like we'll pay you like 1/3 or something, or we can do something. No. Like Tommy's like, they're either going to kill me or they're not going to kill me. There's really not much I can say here, but they have to deal with the torture and hope they don't, because that would be a big escalation. So if they kill me, that's going to be an escalation. I don't think they're going to kill me, but I'm just going to go through it and deal with it. Nobody talks about the philosophy of deals. Like, oh, we signed this deal with you or that deal with you, or whose road it is, or who's none of that, right? No. Jimmy, the cartel guy's got his boss who wants a $30 million. Tommy has his boss, John Hamm, who wants these plays to make money because he's in big debt, we learn later on, right? So anyway, so he does that, and then the cartel's like, okay, well, the torture thing didn't work with Tommy, so we're going to blow up one of their wells or something. So they do that. And then, what does Tommy do? Does he call them and say, hey, listen, we need to negotiate or anything like this? Or, again, it was our road you landed on? No, he's like, okay. I can't deal with them with the police because they have too many weapons or whatever, right? This cartel. So I need to go level up. So then he has a friend in the National Guard, and he goes to talk to him. And he's like, hey, listen, we'll give you some land, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. All I really want you to do is to take your gunships, tanks, whatever, equipment we don't have. I want to go F those people up. That's what they do, right? So they do that. But the point of the story here, and that's that's on this slide, right? The point of the story here is that nobody's thinking about these issues of, are you a terrorist, right? Are you like, do you sign agreements or respect your agreements or anything like that? It's an exercise in power. If the cartel can get the money, they will get the money through power, through physical force. If the oil company wants to get its oil and needs to get the cartel away from their business, it will use physical force. Nobody's talking about agreements and contracts or anything like this. And then, of course, as the show progresses, the cartel guy is like, well, okay, I didn't get the $30 million, but I think I can make money from this guy, right? So then he hatches this other scheme. And Tommy will, even to the guy, says to the guy, hey, listen, you are totally, you just want the money. I know what you want, and I'm not doing a deal with you because I know you're going to screw me, right? That's Tommy's thing. It's like, you're a drug guy, right? You don't respect any laws. You can take somebody out of the back and shoot him. I'm not going to do a deal with you. I'm not getting into bed with the devil with you. But everybody else around him, right? I don't want to give anything away. Not giving much away, but that's how Tommy sees it. And he's right. That's how a Texan would normally see it. Like, listen, It may look good on paper, but I know when it comes down to it, you will get me over a barrel, and I don't want any part of it. He's not, and he's very dismissive of Jimmy. He's very, I'd say, offensive to a certain point. But does Jimmy ever get upset? No, because they're all playing the same game, right? Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. But the one thing that the way landmen works in that way is that nobody is getting into this. Oh, you don't obey your contracts, or you don't return the oil to your people. Like, really? Okay, you're just not there. So I think if you're watching this, Troy, or anybody who does this stuff, don't talk about terrorists, return to the people, religious fanatics, fundamentalists, jihadists. That doesn't mean anything. In the oil game, and what's really going on at the heart of it, and this is the way I see it, you let me know if I'm wrong. Anybody, let me know in the comments. It's been this way from the beginning. It'll been this way till the last drop of oil is taken out. Oil is a business of extractors. And every extractor must have armed protection to protect it. They don't call it black gold for nothing, because oil, like gold, always has a buyer. It's always valuable. If somebody with a gun can take the oil, they will. If they can take the oil, they will. It is impossible to build a well anywhere in the world and have it not protected by guns or physical force. Impossible. That's the way it works. But the problem for Troy is he's forgotten all that somehow. And again, these Texans they're getting very sloppy. They're getting like us New England Yankees. They don't really know how the world works anymore. But it's still there, whether you see it or not. Like I said, theoretically, if Iran wanted to basically take out every big oil well in Texas, they could do it from Cuba. They have the technology to do it. And the U.S. does not have the technology to stop them. The Patriot missiles work 50-50 at best. I don't even think that much. But they don't have it. It doesn't make it. They could, if they wanted to. That force is real. That force is there. I'm not saying they will. But, if you really believe that they were that sicko or whatever, then yeah, they could do that. So you have the extractors, you have the armed protection, the local armed protection. Just like in landmen, Tommy has the local sheriff, but when the cartel, goes down and they have, their paramilitary, he has to bring in national security and trust the state to protect him. And this is the same all over the world. But what Troy's is sort of saying is like the Persians are somehow different sort of people. Like they have different, extractors or different armed protection. Like they run on different rules. No. Nobody in the world runs on different rules. The oil is valuable. It's worth money, right? And everybody who has it has protection. And that's how they protect it. And they want the oil. And nobody's arguing about whether you deserve the oil or that person deserves the oil. You have this contract or that contract. You have the armed protection to protect it, and you can now be yours. You have to also control the trade routes too, right? You have to be able to get it to market. That's what the Strait of Hormuz is about. So it's all about extraction and arms. They are joined right here. There's never one without the other. There's never oil without the other. And so for anybody to talk about, oh, well, the problem is we can't get the oil because they won't sign some agreement. Look, after that, then you have legal protection, you have traders, you have refiners, and in that world, you can operate without even thinking about all this oil. So obviously, Eckhart Enterprises, right? If you go to them and say, hey, yeah, I want to buy an interest in an oil well or upstream or whatever, like they'll do that. But you realize that when you buy into that, your tax dollars are going to the U.S. military, the local police to protect that interest. But that doesn't mean that's not like set in stone. I mean, the U.S. could have a civil war, fall apart tomorrow, and all that. If that military power went away, then what would you do? I mean, no contract that's going to protect you. But this is where Americans, just in general, are stupid, and why I worry about this war, because they think like, oh, like we're the good guys, we have these contracts and whatever. No, that's not the way the world works anywhere. It doesn't work here, doesn't work there. We forget that it works here because we're fat, dumb, and lazy. But it's just that's the way it is in Iran. So in Iran, they see things clearly. They see things like landmen. This is our oil. All right, you're attacking us. You want to get our oil. You want to get rid of our government so you can get the oil for cheaper, right? And then there's the whole Israeli thing I won't go into. But okay, let's just paint in that simple way. And they're like, no, come and get it, right? Come and get it. Just like Tommy. They're like, we want the $30 million. And then first they torture him, then they attack an oil well, and Tommy's like, okay, all right, you coming to get it? Calls up the National Guard, suck on this. And that's what Iran is doing. Like, we're trying to go over there because a bunch of dumb Americans in the government think that they can just because they're stupid. They just don't know anything about Iran. They don't know anything about any of this stuff. They're just idiots. And but that's a big buying opportunity for the if you're in the oil business. So I think this should be good for Troy. Anyway, these knuckleheads think that they're going to take Iran. Iran is like, come on, come on. Iran just would love for the U.S. to attack them because they've been waiting for it. They just want to get it over with. They're like, yeah, bring your biggest shot. Come on and do it. And so that we can just finally get over this. Just like in Landman, right? Okay, the torture isn't working. The sanctions aren't working. The local the oil well isn't working. So Israel just, always like screwing with Iran. Israel always says, oh yeah, Iran's funding these proxies and these terrorists like this. Like Israel doesn't fund proxies or terrorists, or the U.S. doesn't fund proxies and terrorists. Anyway, right? So Iran's like, okay, well, you didn't get it with the sanctions. You didn't get it with your little bully over there in Israel getting it. All right, bring it to me. Bring it to me. You want to have a military on military battle about who's going to get this oil, who's going to control the Strait of Hormuz? Bring it on, okay? And we are going to bring it on. And that's a subject for another day. Anyway,